Eric, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I usually ask people, hey, did you see that UFC on Saturday? But you actually were there, so there's no
Yeah.
reason to ask. How was it being watching UFC from whatever place you guys watching it from?
Well, they actually had us go home. We're not we so once our fight was over, Brad's fight was over. Historically, we would have a green room back in the day, so we would be able to go back and sit and watch fights. Way back in the day, I would say way back, but it feels like it was. We used to be able to go out, and Reed Harris would give us a ticket or two, and if your fight was early prelim or you're middle of the fight, then they would have an area for us afterwards for coaches and fighters to go out and enjoy the fights. But I think it was in Chicago. I remember being there. We go out after one of the fights, and somebody was mad because Brian Caraway beat Eddie Wineland, and it was like in Chicago, and somebody like bet on him and was pissed, and so they didn't really allow us to go back out there because usually you're walking out there with a bunch of drunk fans, and then you can get into it with them. So after that point, I remember like they just set up green rooms for us and did not allow us back on the floor. So all of our cards says like no floor access.
Oh wow, that's oh man. I thought you
Yeah.
guys you can just wander around, watch what's going on.
Man, I wish that was the good old days. We used to be able to do that, and now they're like, no. At least they used to give us the green room, which was nice. So we can go and they fed us, and we go eat and hang out, and you kind of sit and chat with other coaches and fighters and stuff, and just kind of mingle. And now, like this one, I asked them because it's the first fight back since COVID, and I was like, all right, man, where's the green room at? And they're like, oh, bro, no green room. It's like what?
Not this event.
So yeah, so they actually gave us at the hotel. You can go on TV and watch it from the hotel. But man, I was ready to go home, so I was already at home by like 7 o'clock at night, hanging out with the family.
Oh wow, that's cool. But that was a big event, and congrats, Brett won. You were in his corner. Tell me about Let's actually start with the recap of the event in general. What was the most memorable fights for you in that night?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously Brad just was the one because I was involved in, but I think as a fan perspective, I was very curious in the Ryan Hall Ilya fight just because of the styles, and Ryan Hall is obviously a tough puzzle, and I think Ilya had the right game plan. My guy Dan Ige signed to fight Ryan Hall, and then that fight got canceled, and we ended up getting Gavin Tucker instead. But so Ryan Hall has always been one of those guys that's very intriguing. I've had a corner against him before, and he's just a tough puzzle to crack. So I wanted to see as far as game plan and the style that Ilya had versus the style of Ryan Hall, and see which one shook out. So that one was very intriguing to me. The Michelle Pereira fight and Nico Price, I thought was going to be a fun fight, which it did not disappoint. So just as a fan, man, I got to catch some of the good ones, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and I saw your mom actually got involved, and she helped to solve the puzzle when that fateful leg kick that resulted in Connor's injury happened, right?
Yeah. She wrote me in the morning, and yesterday morning, like 7 a.m. And my mom's all about the fight game, So is my dad too, But my mom's different level. So, yeah, she had just mentioned, she's like, oh, it looks like he checked that teep off his elbow, and just kind of in passing. And I was like, all right, well, it's like 7 o'clock, Mom. I'm getting up at like 9. I'll check it out when I get up. And I just watched the tape again, and I was like, oh, sure shit. It does look like he kind of ricochets off of it. By no means do I think that's what was the reason why it broke, but it obviously just bring up that point that, yeah, man, that is a possibility of could have been where maybe it delivered the final blow. Maybe it was broke earlier. Maybe he broke it off a check, but it is certainly a possibility, man. I've seen guys block the teep kick that way, and you can fracture your foot that way. So it was just something my mom pointed out. Moreover, I was giving my mom props for finding something on tape. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was picked up by Joe Rogan, and she's famous now. She's probably more famous than most of
Yeah.
the fighters. Good.
Oh
Good for
yeah, she thinks she's asking when she gets her blue check mark now. I'm like, come on now, mom,
you.
slow your roll.
Hey, you mentioned earlier about you were trying to figure out the game plan of Ryan Hall. So I was curious actually all the time. So when you look at the fight and the, let's say, victory in the fight, what percentage would you assign to the game plan versus the skills of the fighter?
I think it's a good mix of both. I think you game plan to your strengths, and you have to understand, like, where your weak points are, but you want to incentivize what your strengths are as a fighter. So I think if you have a weak submission game, or you're not comfortable in certain areas, then that might present itself in the fight. But you also don't want to really overtake your camp on what your opponent's going to do. You want to try to split it up more into what you're going to do. Coach Wallace used to always call it the 80-20, 80% of what we're going to do within a fight, and then 20% of what your opponent's going to do. Because, the theory is that if you focus 80% on what your opponent's going to do, somehow, some way, you mentally, or you'll find your way there, so like you train for it over and over and over, and somehow like you find your way in that position due to you're mentally always putting yourself there, so he always said 80% of what you're going to accomplish in the fight. So I think it's a good mix of both, but Ilya is a very good fighter all around, and I think he was just very confident when he went in there.
How easy it is to change the game plan as the fight unfolds?
It depends again on the fighter and what skill set you have available to you. It's one thing, like if you have a pure striker and you're getting beat up on the feet, but the guy can't wrestle with the lick, and you're like, all right, we need to wrestle, and you're kind of putting him out of his element, or, and there's injuries that might have occurred throughout the camp and things that you're not able to have to your disposal. So, game plans, I think you want to have, we always kind of say they're tentacles off of one another. So you have like one big core, and then you have little tentacles that slide off that, it can be different routes, whether, you're not going to completely shift gears away from the entire game plan, but you're going to shift gears a little bit to where it's just a tentacle off of what your original game plan was.
And I'm kind of trying to put myself in the shoes of the fighter. Usually you start adjusting game plan when something is not working and your fighter probably getting lit up. I'm just curious, how receptive are they to the advices, and how easy it is for them to adjust during the actual actions?
I think it's the way you deliver it too. I think if you're, panicky as a coach, you're like, all right, we got to change this up because you're getting your ass kicked. It's your delivery systems and the way you want to approach it. Sometimes too, like I like to be ahead of the adjustment. So let's say if round one we were doing something really, really well. Let's say it was just, right overhand or something like that, something we were setting up really, really well. Then maybe in the second round, because they're going to make that adjustment to their right overhand. They should, right? The opposing corner should make that adjustment. So then, understanding that they may make that adjustment, you adjust to something else as well. So you always kind of want to stay one step ahead of your corner and your opponent, and understand what can they adjust to, and it's really turns into that chess match.
I just wanted to say it sounds like a chess. Yeah. So let's talk about Brad's fight with Omari. Like, walk me through not just the fight itself, but the preparation to the fight from the beginning of when you actually found out that Omari is going to be his opponent. What was your first thing? How did you prepare for the fight?
Sure. Yeah. So, Ali and Omari are both, or Ali manages both Omari and Brad. So, Ali is not ever very fond of his guys fighting one another unless it's for a title or a high contender card matchup. But in this particular fight, Brad had asked for it. He said he thought the style matchup fit his style very well. And, he asked Ali if this was something that we can do. And he said, yeah, I think that if you guys are both down, then I think it's a good matchup. It made a lot of sense, 13 versus 15. So we got the fight signed, and then immediately we went to work as far as what we wanted to do game plan wise. Omari's super talented, resilient wrestler, hits hard, very heavy punches, hits a blast double, wrestles well in and out. And we just felt like we wanted to kind of beat him to the punch on the hooks of like big loopy punches. We want to stay down the middle on him. We actually did want him to wrestle a little bit, because we just felt if we got him wrestling in round one, it might take a little bit out of Omari's cardio for the later rounds, which it did work out in that favor. Also, Brad's a big kicker, man. Inside lows, highs, high kicks, outside lows, things of that sort. So we wanted to take away the lead base of Omari, which is going to make it very difficult for him to shoot. So, all of those things I think compiled, and going into rounds 2 and 3, you saw where the game plan was starting to unfold, and where Brad started to really pick up the pace.
Was there anything surprising, or like on a negative way? Like, was Omari doing something you guys didn't expect, or everything was pretty much predictable?
The one thing we didn't really expect was him to shoot out in the open the way he did, without hands setting up. He just would run a blast double, and got successful takedown on Brad, and Brad popped right back up. Brad's probably one of the hardest guys in the gym that I've ever wrestled with or gone with to try to keep down. And you see that in the fights. If he gets taken down, he's immediately back up on his feet. So we had that in our back pocket, knowing if we did get a takedown, it probably is going to work out for us later on in our favor, because of the cardio systems that you take a guy down, hold him down, work back up, and then you're like, oh shit, and it's kind of that mental break. So I was definitely surprised with that. And then Omari did a good job with his low kicks. I was very impressed with that as well. I was like, that's something I think that for us, we're going to have to go back and shore up a little bit more, because others might try to attack that outside load on us now.
Yeah, and obviously, Brad is a veteran. He's been in the game for a very long time. I don't think you guys discussed next fights yet, right? But overall, what's the direction? Is he looking at somebody at top 10, or what is he thinking?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? You always want to try to fight somebody ranked ahead of you if you have that opportunity. But he's gonna nurse some of the injuries that he had throughout camp, and then he got a little injury in the fight. So once we get an idea on what those injuries look like and how long you might be out for, then we'll start game planning or start setting our sights on something. So I'm like most media, most people, it's like I'm on to the next. I'm ready to find the next opponent for him. But in this particular instance, we're going to need a little bit of time to heal up. So, but yeah, hopefully somebody ahead of him.
What role do you as a coach play when it comes to the opponents? Do you recommend certain opponents for him, for your fighters, or you basically deal with whatever they bring?
Well, a little bit of both, but Brad's a very unique situation. So like, I don't know, it was way back when I think Ali would call me and I got to pick out our last couple opponents, like I'd just literally hand pick them, and Ali would go and see if Mick was down for that fight, and he would make the fight. So literally I got to pick Talis Latis, I got to pick Elias Theodoro. I picked that guy out. I picked out, who else? I had another guy I picked out too. I can't remember, but yeah, it was just pretty much, guys in the pecking order that I felt that we could have a good fight with, but also showcase our skill set. And, it gave us that opportunity. And then of course, when he fought Israel, that's one you don't really get to pick out. It was a main event. Both of the guys were on 3-fight win streaks. Oh, Christoph Jocko, that was the other one. So yeah, we had that opportunity. So it's very rare, but in the Brad instance, I do have a little bit of say in who we get to fight.
That's great. And you have another big fight coming, right? Miesha Tate is returning, and you're gonna be in her corner, right?
Yeah, I'll be there for her this week.
I think it's been almost 5 years since she fought, right? Last time.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was 2016. I believe you're right. I think it was Raquel Pennington.
What's how this decision of coming back came to her?
I think just time away from the sport. She was able to kind of hit the reset button, change her environment, if you will, the people around her, and just be a mom, be a wife, and really she was just kind of analyzing the sport more than being involved in it and working as an executive. So I think all those things kept her relevant. It kept her mentally sharp when it comes to the game. So nothing's really passed her by. So, and then I think just really falling back in love with the sport again. And that was something I think that was important for all of us, for her to see that she really loved the sport once again, and being back in the room and the grittiness about the game. And it never has really left her. So, it's great to have her back. That's for sure.
What's the most difficult thing about returning after such a big hiatus? Is it the mental aspect, or it's a physical? What's your take on that?
It's a good question, because I think each fighter has certain elements in them that got them into the sport. some people got into the sport because it was their way out of a bad environment. Some people got into the sport because they wanted to be competitors or they're high level athletes. So there's numerous reasons, but I think the important thing is if you still have that burning desire in you and you know that you want to compete at this highest level, because it's not easy at all. It's a dangerous sport. So you don't want to just do it half-assed. And if you're ready to commit to it fully, then I think you're okay to come back. And then, the nice thing that I was very happy with Miesha, that she didn't force anything. She actually came back and just started training again, and just to see if she wanted to do this. And I knew in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, she wants to come back. But I never said anything. I just let her, come to practice and do her thing. And then, she was here every day and doing all the hard practices. And once you hop into sparring, because, most of the time, no one, if you're out of the game, you're not trying to spar unless you're Jay Huron or a couple other race FO. But when I saw her back in the sparring, I was like, oh, she's up to something here. So I think she definitely wants to come back.
And your opponent, Marion Renault?
Yep. Yeah, Marion.
It's going to be her last fight, retirement fight, right? And she's coming off 4 losses. What's your take? Is it going to make it more challenging? Do you think she's trying to leave on a high note, which is going to make it harder for Miesha? Or it's almost like she's beaten down and you don't like what's your take in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that she wants to obviously go out on top, and she's been a pioneer of the women's division for a long, long time. She might not be the most, in my opinion, I think she's one of the pioneers, right? But if this is going to be her last fight, you guarantee that she's gonna bring it. And she comes from a great camp with Jim West and those guys at MMA Gold. And I think that, we're going to get the best Marion Renault that we're going to get out of her. So by no means do I think that she's going to be taking us lightly. And this is her exit, swan song. And she's just going to give us a win. I think she's going to fight her ass off and make sure she leaves out on top.
And for Miesha, is it the kind of trial fight, or she's coming back for several fights at least? Do you know?
Oh, she's coming back. She's coming back for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, she's coming back for sure. So, that was the biggest thing too, when we sat in my office and kind of talked about it. I just asked her, like, well, what's the goal here? Like, what are we trying to do? And she goes, I want my belt back.
Okay.
She's like, I want to go at this. I want to fight, and I want to be the best in the world at this again. And that made me feel good to hear, man, because, is this a money grab, or are you just trying to do it to come back? Like, what was the whole perception of this? And knowing Miesha and the competitor that she is, it just fired me up to hear her say that. She's like, no, I want to come back and I want to fight. I want a shot at Amanda Nunes again. It's like, well, good for you. I like to hear that. So that's when we got to work.
That's great. And best of luck to her. She's great. And she's a massive star. It's great to have her back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
thank you.
Let's talk about, and speaking of the fascinating stories of fighters, there's this amazing video. I'm not sure if you subscribe to Mixed, what's his name? Mixed Molly Whoppery, something like that on YouTube. He has fantastic videos of different fighters, and he has one on Francis Ngannou, and he basically takes back how Francis started his whole career. His life it's mind-boggling how he got where he is, but he's a champion right now, right? And congrats on that. It was an amazing win. I know there are some politics going on, and seems like Curtis Blade's going to be fighting Cyril Gane for
Derek Lewis.
Oh, I'm sorry, for Derek Lewis is going to be fighting Cyril Gane. How do you see that fight unfolding, and what's your take on this whole situation in general?
Well, I think it's a great fight. I think those guys are definitely deserving to fight each other. I think Gane has made this like skyrocketing rise up through the ranks. And I think Derek Lewis is definitely going to be his toughest test due to Derek's style. Derek very rarely gets put away. This dude is tough as all can be. He has knockout power that lasts throughout the 5 rounds. We've seen him finish Volkov, and we've seen him get those, with seconds left. So the guy's never out of a fight. So it is definitely a great litmus test for both guys. I think they're very deserving of that main event slot. But I think we just have to question the idea of it being an interim belt when, Francis just won the belt on March 27th. again, but it's it's up to the promotion. They have to do what they see fit, and we're just have to take a step back and let this thing shake out, and then once we figure out if it's going to be the winner out of those two or if John Jones is going to step up to the plate. So it is what it is right now for us. We just got to stay busy.
Can you analyze all the three fighters he can potentially fight? Like, he already fought Derek Lewis, but it was different circumstances. I think everyone would agree that this is different Ngannou. Cyril Gane, what's your take on Cyril?
Man, a very good lateral movement, strikes out of both stances, nice, keeps himself nice and long, utilizes the cage really well, has sneaky wrestling, has sneaky submission game. I think he's an all-around talent, man. I think that he's in the right spot right now, fighting for that basically who's up next kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward actually to see the way Derek Lewis and his camp approaches this fight, because I think it's going to give me more as far as preparation time to kind of understand what we want to do if we have to fight one or the other.
And Cyril, I think he's from MMA Factor, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
And as Francis originally, right? Did they know each other from that time or no?
Yeah, no, they did. They've had some sparring sessions together. They knew each other from way back when, and Francis has some pretty good intel or insight on him. But again, like, they haven't trained in however many years, and the growth and the process of where Gane is where he was to is now. You can never overlook his growth, man. He looks amazing in there, and I think this guy is rightfully in the position he is today.
Yeah, and Francis is kind of scary guy. Like, I think the only scarier thing than Francis is the composed Francis that we saw against Stipe. Walk me through the adjustments you guys made over between two fights.
Well, I think that was just it. We had to make him understand that if you hit a home run, it's worth the same amount of points, right? So I would tell him, like, hey, you could hit a 400-foot home run or a 500-foot home run. It's still a home run. So we don't need to swing out of our shoes. We don't need to do something that's going to take us out of our position. We just need to be calm and concise and calculated. And all those things will start setting each other up. So 4 base hits equals a home run, right? You can just touch. You can find your openings. You can wear on them. You can drop the low kicks. We can counter wrestle. We can make him panic wrestle. There's numbers of things that we can do here, and all it really is going to take patience, because your reads and the way that he calculates and the way that he's able to see things is what makes him so good. And like you saw that, he threw a cross lead uppercut, right? Like it was more of a Wing Chun style lead uppercut that had more of a lengthy snap to it rather than a big power punch, and it dropped Stipe. So you're seeing his evolution. You're seeing him throw a same side jab, left high kick. He's doing a lot of great things with his skill set that I think he's getting more and more comfortable, and he's finding more and more things in his arsenal that people are going to have to worry about.
Yeah, he stuffed the takedown so impressively, as if he's been training wrestling quite a long time. Was it one of the areas of focus for you guys?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's been something that he's been working on, behind the scenes since he moved over here for this Curtis Blades 2 fight. He's been working with us for, I think, the last 7 fights now, but we haven't had to show that. We haven't had to show that at all because he's finished guys so early, and big credit to Dennis Davis, our wrestling coach here, Nate Pettit, all the guys in the room. We really meticulously broke down a couple things for him that we just wanted him to focus on. And he's really shown up and taken that within stride, because he knew, like, okay, if I can fix this one hole in my game, then I can be the best in the world, and fortunately for us, we hadn't had to really show it until the Stipe fight. And, we saw what he's capable of now.
Yeah. Even that didn't last too long. So
right.
Let's talk about John Jones. So he clearly is eyeing the heavyweight, even though it's kind of mixed messages from his social media, but I could tell that he gained weight, and there is a reason for that. When you look at John Jones, how would you try to solve that puzzle? Is it just take his head off? Is it the...
No, you can't. I think if that's the approach you're going to take, you're in for a long night. I don't think you can just go in there and try to take his head off, you know. And I think when you look at John, his durability, his chin, his ability not to get hit, I kind of allude him to, like, if you're a Barry Sanders fan in football, Barry Sanders never got squared up. He never got hit completely clean. He was always able to kind of roll with the tackle or roll with the punch, you know, and that same mentality. So I think you're in for a long night if you're going in there and try to just think you could walk through the man. So we have to be very strategic. There's a lot of things that I think that we have all like pen to paper right now on things we want to work on and we want to get better at. But obviously, hopefully we get that fight and you guys will be able to see those things.
Well, yeah, hopefully it's going to be a fascinating fight. What I wanted to chat with you about, like, we discussed your fighters, but we don't really know them as people. So I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about them as your friends, right? Like, let's talk about each of them and try to recall the first time you've met them. Let's start with Brad. Do you remember the first meeting?
Yeah. You know, Brad had just moved out here from Hawaii. He was over at Tap Out Gym working with Sean Tompkins and some of those guys. And, you know, just a burly Hawaiian kid that, you know, we had a common interest in football. We played ball and we kind of had that commonality. And that's, I think, where we kind of hit it off as friends. You know, I've been on the road with him a few times. I was cornering Martin Kampman when he was out in Indianapolis and Brad was fighting Bubba McDaniel. Just made myself of service to help him with the weight cut, you know, in the locker room, whatever he might need. And then in the next fight, we ended up fighting Tim Boach. He took me out there for that fight. And, you know, that's really when our friendship and our training, our camaraderie started to you know, click. And we've been together ever since, man. I think, you know, this is our 13th or 14th fight together in the UFC. So, yeah, man, just a good friend. He's Uncle Brad to the kids. He's a guy that he's our team captain at Xtreme Couture. So he's now that veteran. He's catching Michael Bisping on the middleweight wins in the division.
Yeah, I saw that. That's fascinating.
You know, pretty cool stat. I don't think any of us knew that either. I don't think Brad knew that as well. We're like, oh shit, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's, you know, Brad's just that guy, man. When I think of Brad Tavares, I think that team captain mentality.
Yeah, very humble guy, and
great guy,
very nice guy. And what about Miesha?
Like my little sister, man. She came here for Ronda Rousey 2, that fight. Didn't go her way, but she decided to make it a home. I think we reeled off 5 wins in a row and she got the title. You know, I was always kind of on the outside of the camp as far as, like, never in the corner as a coach, but I was always there as far as, you know, support or back up or help watch tape or help do whatever I could. But she just became a great friend of mine, man. She's like a little sister to me. I love her to death. Her work ethic, her mentality, her approach to the game, all those things. And just as an overall human being, man, just a great, humble person.
And when you were watching her fights prior for her joining you, did you see, like, hey, she's pretty special?
Yeah, there was something about her, and I think she just had this, like, gritty wrestling mentality where she came from in the Pacific Northwest, where, you know, man, she was never out of a fight. Obviously, in the Holly Holm fight, she needed that Hail Mary, and she went out and got it. You know, there's fights where she just will dig down deep and bite down on her mouthpiece and, you know, throw down and get after it. And just a fan favorite and always fun to watch. And just her mentality and her approach to the game is infectious.
Yeah, true. Now, Francis.
Yeah, man, Francis. Man, he's become part of my family, you know, and I think that's a common denominator when you talk about a lot of my fighters. But, you know, he's been a guy that it was a slow process for us to become as close as we were, which I love about that because it was very organic. And I think, you know, something that was never forced. But at the same time, you know, when I first met him, I jumped his shit. Like, I wrote him because he was showing up late to practice. And one day I yelled at him for being late. And his manager's good. Yeah, I did a little bit. But ultimately I did it because I care about him and I love him and I want him to be successful, you know? And so I told him, I say, hey, practice starts at 3:30. You need to be here at this time, you know, and I don't want you to show up late because I see so much potential in you. And I think that you're cheating yourself by showing up late. I think that mentality kind of rubbed off on him. So his manager, Markel, called me that night and I thought for sure Markel was going to, you know, give me shit for yelling at him. And he said, hey, you know, Francis was actually very happy that you said something about him being late. It showed that you cared. and that you're not just a yes man. And I think that it's important that he has that in his life. What do you guys think about working together? And I said, I think we should slowly kind of see how this thing goes. And the more and more we were around one another, the more and more we would have fun, and kind of that brotherhood and camaraderie started to pick up. And, I cornered him for Junior Dos Santos, and then Jairzinho, and obviously for Stipe. So, but in that time, man, we've become very close friends, and he's just another part of my family, especially with the pandemic. He's at the house every day. He's damn near. So, and he's my brother.
And like people can see that you have a picture of him with a belt like right behind you. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So wait, when was the first fight? When did he join your gym?
He joined the gym, the Curtis Blades 2 fight, but he was still using a lot of his guys from MMA Factory. I think Coach Dewey, a couple other people, but he didn't really have a solid foundation of what he wanted as far as the camp and coaches go. And he just came and jumped in the system. He just jumped in the system here at Xtreme Couture, and I think that's a pat on the back to all the coaches that we have here. The guys just took him under his wing, and we just wanted to see the guy succeed. We weren't in it for anything other than we liked the guy. And I think once he felt comfortable and he knew that we were all had his back, the more and more you started to see, him feel comfortable around us. And, that's when things started really clicking. I think Cain Velasquez fight, he had asked me about cornering him and stuff, but there was a little bit of a conflict as far as travel. I was there, but I had a fighter and some other stuff was going on. But man, it just everything kind of works out for the reasons why. And I haven't really looked back, man. He's now that champion here at Xtreme Couture.
And I saw Usman being in the corner as well. How do you guys divide the duties when you're cornering him?
Well, if I'm the chief corner, head corner, whether you're the head or Dewey's the head, it doesn't really matter. I think it's important just to have clear, concise communication in the corner. I don't like a lot of people yelling and screaming stuff because it makes things chaotic in the corner. You want to be calculated. So for me, I want Usman talking, but I want his input to be more of a calming factor. So everybody had a role. Let's put it like that. Everybody had a role, and everybody's role is important. So positive reinforcement, technical side of things. If you see something, hey, make sure you grab the wrist here, this or that. But you also don't want it to turn into white noise where all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 guys just fucking yelling and screaming.
Yeah, one other interesting guy you have is a Dan Ige, who basically came out of nowhere and became the. I don't know. He's been featuring the fight nights, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember there was this documentary of Anatomy of the Fighter, and he was there next to Ali Abdelaziz, and I thought he's his assistant, and then I saw him kicking people's ass. I'm like, oh my god, this guy is just great.
Yeah.
How did he end up with your gym? And tell me a little bit about Dan.
That's my guy. Man, I love the kid to death. He's so amazing. I think that people now are starting to see his personality, but his humbleness, what he's capable of in the ring or the cage. And he's just one of those hard workers. He systematically gets better every camp, every fight. He's finding ways to improve himself, his skill set, whether it's taking care of his body a different way, whether it's different strength and conditionings. I'm big on going out and training with other coaches. So like we go out and train with Trevor Whitman. We try to add new tools and new things and new ideas and ideologies to our game. I think if you try to hold a guy down too much, it doesn't work, man. Like you have to be comfortable and going out and spreading your wings a little bit. And he's been that guy. Like he's really takes on a lot of knowledge with Khabib, Usman, Henry Cejudo has been a huge help for him. And, he was living on Brad Tavares' couch. He was one of those couch jumpers, and we were able to convince him to make the move and believe in himself and get out here. And really, it's changed his life for the better. Has some of the best self-belief I've ever been around. And, he's always felt like he was going to be a champion. And I think that he's right on that path. Yeah.
And he's great. Yeah. And as you said, he's very humble, and obviously being next to champions like Francis and the whole Ali's team. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect, man. Just great guys. And, we've had a great, such a fun run, him and I both, especially on that local circuit. Me coming up as a coach, him coming up as a fighter, on the road, going to LFAs or Titan or CFC or some shit promotion somewhere, I won't call them shit, but you know what I mean? The smaller shows.
Yeah, you
and
meant shit,
just,
yeah.
yeah. But, cutting our teeth and learning with one another and growing with one another. And I think that's why you see, our energy in the cage and the way we speak to one another and the way we hold ourselves accountable. And, he's the reason why I am the coach today is Dan Ige, to be quite fair.
Wow, interesting. So you became a coach of the year in 2020, and frankly, just like Dan Ige, for quite a long time, I didn't know who you are, and then suddenly you are everywhere. Like everyone is featuring you. What's your story? How did you get to MMA?
I started here at Xtreme Couture. I'm literally member number 1 here at the gym. I started training here when Randy was fighting Tim Sylvia. I just kind of found a path in coaching. I never got into the sport because I wanted to be a pro fighter. I got in the sport because I just wanted to be involved in something dynamic and bigger than me, and be around like-minded individuals. I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels, and I was in a position where, I felt like I was around people that just weren't really go-getters. And when I stepped into this gym, I was around, Mike Pyle and Jay Huron and guys that, man, I just loved being around the way that they worked and their work ethic and their mentality. Dennis Davis was my first coach here, and he's still my coach to this day. Guys with longevity that have been around the sport for a long time. And I just learned something every day. I learned something new, man. So, I have that head down and grind mentality. I never really ever wanted to be like bigger than anything, right? Like I just felt like if I did a good job, my fighters are going to do a good job, and in turn you're going to get the praise because your fighters are the ones that are doing the work for you. They're the ones winning the fights, so your product is them. So fortunately for me, I have these great fighters that make me look good, and I think I reap the benefits of a great system and a great team here. And I think for me, getting coach of the year was a testament to all the people that I'm surrounded with, to be quite honest with you.
But what's in general, how did you discover MMA? Like,
I started training a little bit. I had a good friend of mine. He was he was like doing Sansu, but he was more of he was John Jock Machado brown belt at the time. There wasn't very many out here in Las Vegas when I first started. And then as a kid, I was like 17 or 18 years old, I think. And I'd go over to John Lewis's gym over at JSEC. But when I got a scholarship, part of my scholarship for football was you're not allowed to do any of that stuff or you'll lose your scholarship. So I would go and kind of sneak in and do what I could. When I couldn't, it was nothing, bro. It was just really just kind of learning and changing up the environment and changing up some of the, the workouts and things of that sort. But I always loved it. I always had such a great time doing it. And then, Randy was opening his gym, I think in 2006 or 2007. And really just, honest to God, stumbled across this place with a buddy. And came in, and there was a bunch of guys in here training. I was like, can I, I don't know, like, can I train? Like, what do I do? And they just kicked the living shit out of me, and they're like, all right, come back tomorrow. Kick the living shit out of you again. And they're like, all right, come back tomorrow. And I just never stopped coming.
And at some point you decided to start training, right? Because I see you holding your pupils on mitts, right? So
yeah,
those skills and your ability to analyze the fights, where does that come from if you weren't a professional fighter yourself?
Yeah, no, I think it was just really time in the sport, and for me, I had so many great coaches around me. I started off more grappling, and that's all I like to do is grapple. And then I look over and I see Ray Sefo here in my gym, 6-time world champ, K1 kickboxer, legend of the sport. And I'm like, man, how come I've never really like picked Ray's brain more? He's my friend, and I'm sure I can ask him questions. And something really bothered me when we had a coach here that would pride himself in being a specialty coach, meaning like I'll only coach one thing. I only coach this. And I no knock on him, but it made me realize that there's more to this sport than being a specialty coach. And I started to understand that if I can learn more and more, I make myself a better commodity. So if I go on the road with these guys, they're not going to have to bring a boxing coach, a jiu-jitsu coach, a wrestling coach, or this, or that, or this. They can bring one coach. I could wrap your hands. I could hold your pads. I could wrestle. I could grapple. I could do the feet to the floor, and it makes yourself a bigger commodity. So I went over to Ray and I said, hey man, I really want to learn how to hold pads, and he goes, okay, be here every Tuesday, Thursday at 10 a.m. You're going to hold pads for me every day. And I would do it. I would come in and I'd hold pads for him and I'd learn. He'd teach me angles. He'd teach me this. He'd teach me that. And I was just fell in love with the sport all over again from a whole different entity. And it being, obviously my big brother, but one of the best strikers in the world. So, I got to cut my teeth with one of the best strikers in the world, Ray. And then, I took a liking to Dwayne Ludwig and started picking Dwayne's brain and made an affiliate gym here, Bang Muay Thai. So I now have, Bang as one of my coaches as well. So, really, man, I think it's just me studying and being a student of the game, asking questions. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask people what they think about certain things or how to be coached. I think to be a good coach, you always have to be coachable. And I never had that ego about me. So, I think that's what's helped me a lot in the sport, and it's helped me become a better student.
You've been around sport for some time. What do you see? What changes do you see in fighting styles in general?
I think everybody's very good everywhere. I think everybody's very good all around fighters now. And guys can wrestle if they need to. Guys can play off their back or get up more topside heavy. The biggest thing I think as far as the striking goes is guys can hit from both stances now. Guys can hit as an orthodox or a southpaw. They have a lot better movement. And that helps with the cage control, the way you want to do your cutoffs, the traps you want to set. So you watch a lot of my fighters, man. I like to take pride in the fact that they can hit out of both stances. And I think that's a very important part of the game and the evolution that you've seen over the years.
When you look at the roster, the entire UFC roster, outside of your guys, who do you really like to watch fighting?
Man, probably Kamaru. I like Kamaru Usman a lot. He's been a guy that I've got to watch even prior to the UFC, his kind of build up. I love what Henry Hoof did with him as far as keeping him as a grappling style striker, blending his best attribute into his hands. He never tried to make him something that he wasn't. And I think Henry did a brilliant job of bringing him up. And then, his skill set has now just evolved into something different with Trevor. I think Henry built that base and Trevor just threw some sprinkles on top. So credit to both coaches. I think they've done a marvelous job with him, but, being around Usman and his mental state and the way he approaches the game, his fight IQ and situational awareness, I think are something different. And man, I think from an outsider looking in, I would say definitely Usman.
That's great. Eric, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to wish you all the best. Your fighters do amazing. I hope you're going to be coach of the year every year going forward.
I appreciate that.
I'm wishing you that, and you definitely deserve it. Thanks very much, man.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you, and appreciate you asking me to come on the show.